Hello YouTube, my name is Rstall and I stream Magic the Gathering Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on Twitch. Every week I will be publishing a drafting guide for a different archetype. Today we will be covering the best cards for Boros in Brothers War. It is somewhat early in the set, but aggro strategies have been doing well, especially Boros. So I'll start my guides off with the best commons, then move up in rarity. Starting things off, we have Prison Sentence. I think it is the best white common. It is great early removal, good in blue-white and red-white. Aggro and tempo decks really want early removal, and I think one of the mistakes that I see people doing is holding on to this for the perfect target to remove with Prison Sentence, and I think one of the things that they give up is the Scry 2 and how important that can be for curving out. If you want to play on turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, you need to hit your land drops the way that you want, the Scry 2 helps smooth that out and is very advantageous to use early on in your curve. Next up, we have the best red common, Excavation Explosion. It ramps, it removes problematic creatures, or it can just burn 3 to their face. So not only is it early removal, ramp, or late game reach, but there are some Power Stone synergies in Boros as well, mostly in the form of cheap artifact creatures. For example, Scrapwork Cohort. One of the best colorless white commons. This card is good in every white deck, and it's even good if you can't pay its unearth cost. It applies good pressure, and it helps you go wide. Another way to use your Power Stones is through the top quality colorless red common, Scrapwork Mutt. This card is great in any red deck, and it also sees play if you can't cast its unearth cost. The most important aspect is that this card lets you filter. Although it is hard to discard a non-land, sometimes you have to ensure that you can play your 3-drop. This card also lets you discard unwanted lands later in the game when you're looking for that last little bit of something to finish off your opponent. Although not as strong as the previous 4, Airlift Chaplain is worth a mention. You have to make a judgment call on whether to take the card or make a 2/2 flyer. There aren't a lot of cards in the set that answer flyers very well, so a 2/2 flyer can apply a lot of pressure on your opponent. Then again, 3-cost cards that draw you a card have been really good in limited, so taking that, 3-cost value, mana value 3 or less card can be really advantageous. And Boros tends to be very low to the ground, so you're going to have a lot of targets to hit. And it kind of plays as like a makeshift overseer. Also worth mentioning, not as strong as the first 4 commons that I listed, is Ambush Paratrooper. It is also a flyer, which is difficult to deal with, but it also offers a late game mana sink, which gives another use for your Power Stones late in the game, and benefits the kind of go wide strategy. Being able to pump your creatures on 5 and 6 for +1/+1 can definitely end the game. The last common that I think stands out from the rest and deserves a mention is Aeronaut's Wings. Although it is a little clunky, the set is weak to flyers, and this can be the evasion that you need to finish off your opponent once they've started to recover and stabilize and wall up. Now for the uncommons. Static Net. I love this card. It is almost a mythic level uncommon. If you are in white, run this card. It doesn't just remove creatures, it can target any non-land permanent. It also gains you 2 life and ramps by creating a Power Stone. I will take as many of these as I can get, and I am happy to pack one, pick one this. Also on the list for almost mythic level uncommons in Boros is Mishra's Bubble. This card was banned in Historic, or is banned in Historic, and was missing from the draft for the first week. So it may not seem like much, but it allows you to run basically a 39 card deck. It also has really good synergies with Goblin Blast Runner. Although Goblin Blast Runner is more of a black-red superstar, it pairs very nicely with Mishra's Bauble, as well as other artifact sacrifice outlets like Paragon Strongbow. I wouldn't want a bunch in the Boros archetype, but if I have the artifact sacrifice synergies, it's a fun combo at the uncommon common level, and it's definitely worth keeping an eye out for. And to be clear, I would run Mishra's Bauble even if I didn't have the Blast Runners, but not vice versa. Horned Stoneseeker is the bread and butter of red decks. It is a 2/2 Menace for 2, which would be good enough, but it also ramps. A note on interacting with this card, though: if you find yourself against it, be sure to remove it after the Enter the Battlefield effect has resolved, otherwise they get a Power Stone token. I had an opponent use instant speed removal, like Disfigure, and mess this up, leaving me with a Power Stone token. So don't be like them. Wait for it to resolve, make me sacrifice the Power Stone. The next top tier uncommon is Ashnod's Harvester. I know what you're thinking, Arstall, you can't pay for its unearth cost. It's in red-white. Doesn't matter. This card answers self-mill and unearth strategies and is early pressure. I would play 6 of these in a Boros deck. It's a great card. Recruitment Officer, I think, is good just as a 2/1 for 1. And then its ability can come into play late game. When your opponent and you are both top decking, it can give you additional resources to close out the game. Race your opponent to drawing that useful card. Another bread and butter card for red is Giant Cindermaw. The trample is great. The extra power as a 4/3 for 3 is great, and the players can't gain life definitely can come into play because it can stop a Boulder Branch Golem from letting your 1 HP opponent recover to where they're out of reach from an explosion to the face. Obliterating Bolt is top quality red removal. It hits planeswalkers, and most importantly, it exiles to get rid of problematic unearthed creatures. If I see one of these around pick 5 or pick 6, it's a big signal that red is open. Combat Thresher is your bread and butter white uncommon. 3-cost creatures that draw a card have been great and limited, and this is no exception. Although most of the time you'll play it out for its prototype cost of 3, if you find yourself with enough Power Stones, it can come down as a 3/3 double strike. This is another card that if I see around pick 5 or pick 6, I take it as a signal that white is open. Mishra's Research Desk is strongest in blue-red, but it is still amazing in Boros. It's cheap card draw, and its cost can be spread out between 2 turns. Just remember to not play a land from your hand in case this exiles 2 lands. It also synergizes with Goblin Blast Runner, and I think it is a staple in any red deck. The last standout uncommon for Boros is the gold card Phyrexian Vanguard. I wouldn't want to run multiple copies, especially since I've found myself running 16 and even 15 lands in this set. So you have to choose your top end carefully, and it being a gold card and requiring both colors, it can be very difficult if you've got a low land count. So I'd rather run Scrapwork Cohort, but it's leagues above Phyrexian Chain Dancer, the 2/4 where you have to activate to give it double strike. On to the rares. Most of these are great in any deck and not a reason to force Boros, but if you manage to pick a couple up, they are great additions. Siege Veteran is a broken card. It's basically a Luminarch Aspirant for 1 more mana, and it can spawn 1/1 soldiers if you happen to have any soldier synergy. This is one of those cards that if I open this, I'm figuring out how to play it, even if it's just as a single splash. It needs to be answered with removal, or you just snowball the game out of control. Lauren of the Third Path is a 2/1 for 3 with a built-in Disenchant. In a set where Disenchant is main boardable, I love cards like this. Its ability to tap for a card can also work in a pinch, but be sure to do it at the end of the opponent's turn, so you at least get access to the drawn card first. Tyrant of Kir Ridges. In Draft Club, which is a tournament I play in every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, I got destroyed by this card single-handedly. 4 damage removes most problematic threats, and at the very least you can always just hit them in the face. Then, as a 4/5 flyer, it dominates as one of, if not the largest flyer in the set, and it has fire breathing for a little icing on top. The 4 and double pip red does make this a little hard to play, since you'll need at least 9 red sources to be able to play this reliably on turn 6. So it's for the Boros decks that are mostly red. Phyrexian Dragon Engine. In aggro strategies, more specifically Boros and Rakdos, or black-red, they tend to have very low-to-the-ground curves, and that makes this a great card, because if you can dump your hand, you get to unearth this, discard 0 cards, and draw 3 cards. And as a 2/2 double striker for 3, that's great early game pressure. So I'm looking for this card in Rakdos and Boros aggro strategies. Steel Seraph benefits if you can afford to play it for its prototype cost at 1 double pip white. But since that means running 12 white sources to reliably cast this on turn 3, most of the time it's going to be easier to plan on playing this as top end as a 5/4 flyer for 6. Not bad. Being able to give flying to your next biggest threat or lifelink to Steel Seraph itself wins a lot of games. Although it's stronger in a white deck, it's still very strong even outside of white. Now onto the rares I wouldn't go out of my way to figure out how to play, but would be more than happy to include. Mishra's Command is strongest in blue-red, and thank God it's not instant, because then it would be really broken. Most of the time this kills one of their threats and hits for some extra damage. I have yet to see this kill a Planeswalker or loot away extra lands, but it's always nice to have the option in a pinch. Feldon Run-on Excavator. I'm always wary of creatures that can't block, but if you find yourself needing to block with Boros, you're probably losing already. Feldon Run-on Excavator plays as a hasted Grizzly Bear with the upside that it can be card neutral unless it's removed without being dealt damage. Kayla's Command, similar to Mishra's Command, would be absolutely busted as an instant. At sorcery speed, it's still pretty good. Its casting cost does make it a bit hard to play, requiring 12 white sources if you want to reliably cast it on turn 3, but most of the time you're okay using this later in the game and can kind of cheese its casting cost a little bit. I've used it mostly to put a +1/+1 counter and double strike on something with some sort of evasion, like Menace or Flying, and to gain 2 life and scry 2. I think its worst option is grabbing a Plains when you've already hit your 2 white sources. Autonomous Assembler is happiest in blue-white, but any white deck benefits from including it. Usually you want to curve out with Boros, meaning that you won't have the free mana to grow this guy every turn, but even just as a 2/2 Vigilance for 2, it makes the cut. And here's one you might not expect. Boros is the only non-black archetype that I would consider playing Transmigrant's Crown. You usually are attacking every turn at the price of trading off some of your smaller creatures, and Crown replaces them with cards at the price of 2 mana to equip, or it can deter your opponent from blocking your 1/1. It's definitely stronger in black, but worth considering in Boros. And now for the rare that I would only play in Boros. Soul Partition can bounce a problematic blocker, and hopefully the game is over before they can pay the tax. I might also play it in the blue-white soldiers deck, but I think its home is here in the Boros aggro. Last but not least, we have the Mythics. Myrel, Shield of Argive, is a decent body at 3/4 for 4, and making it so your opponent can't play spells or activate abilities on your turn matters more than you might think. Creating at least one 1/1 soldier every time she attacks can quickly bury your opponent, not to mention that if you have additional soldiers off of Scrapwork Cohort, for example, great synergy. And for the grand finale, we have Draconic Destiny. Although it is strongest in green-red, I'm happy to play it especially if my Boros deck is mostly red. One double pip red requires 12 red sources to reliably cast on turn 3, but giving a creature fire breathing and flying definitely needs an answer, and if they have one, you just get to play it on another creature. So, I hope you enjoyed my simple guide to Boros. Remember to hit like and subscribe to help support me, and you can catch me Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on Twitch. And if you have a specific archetype you'd like to see next week, let me know by voting on Patreon. The link will be down in the description. No subscription is necessary. Or you can leave a comment below. Thank you once again all for the support. It means so much. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you next week.